Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as mass vaccine rollouts have already begun and we're all starting to get a little bit excited about getting our lives back together, and many people will soon be starting to satisfy their pent-up desire to finally get out on a vacation again, lie by a beach, drink cocktails in the sunshine, all those things that we miss. But that does mean that the marketplace is going to need to be more competitive than ever before, and leveraging payments as a strategic growth and recovery driver is quickly becoming essential to the success of travel businesses. And a recent report by Nuvei talks about how to adapt digital-first and touchless travel, which newest payments innovations you must implement to address customer expectations, and what solutions optimize authorization rates, and also how to make changes within an organisation to position payments as a key revenue driver for recovery. All critical at the moment, I would think, for business leaders. But I wanted to learn more about that and the technology involved, so I invited them on the podcast today, and thankfully they said yeah. So we're going to discuss how the pandemic has affected the world of payments, e-commerce, and everything from betting and global market prices, and so much more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to London so we can speak with Motie Bring, Chief Commercial Officer. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, nice to meet you, Neil. I am Motie Bring. I am the Chief Commercial Officer at Nuvei, Digital Payments. I'm in charge of all the commercial activities of the business, overseeing all the sales activities, the relationship management, partners and channels.
And Nuvei is the payment technology partner of thriving brands that provide the intelligence and technology businesses need to succeed, both locally and globally. But can you tell me a little bit more about who your customers are and the kind of problems that you're solving for them with technology?
Yeah, good question. We work with global companies on from different verticals. We tend to look into customers who need a wide range of payment methods. So card processing, alternative payment methods, wallets, helping them to reach as many countries as possible, as many consumers as possible, helping in creating new markets for them, enabling multiple facets that otherwise it wouldn't have. So we offer about 450 different payment methods. So if you're in Brazil, in Mexico, in Argentina, you would be expected to see payment methods that are relevant to you. So we try to do that and then help them on the acceptance rate and approval rating by using cascading systems. So again, once they manage to use their marketing machine to get customers through the door, to make sure that those consumers are staying with them and find a way to make the purchases they want. In terms of verticals, we tend to work with anything from online gambling companies to retailers, digital companies to travel companies, airlines, etc. So we cover a wide range of verticals in all different geographies.
And before we started recording today's podcast, we were sharing lockdown stories and even lockdown haircuts, home haircuts. But I'm curious, from a work perspective, have you seen COVID-19 accelerate that shift to e-commerce?
Yeah, I think there are many stories about how COVID accelerated the adoption of digital by 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depends on the country and the vertical. I would say that we have absolutely seen that happening. I think we can see the adoption of payment methods that probably were less familiar before. We can see generations that were a bit slower in adopting payment methods and moving to new technologies, doing that at a faster pace. We saw businesses having to adopt. Businesses who might have not had a digital presence before had to find a way to reach consumers by creating a new infrastructure to enable that. I said to you before, I live in London. My local cafe, who used to have a footprint of customers coming in to buy food, had to find a way to reach customers through online platforms to be able to offer delivery. So businesses that did not have any capabilities before to do that have to learn to do it. And I think the side effect of that is you see many companies have had a fantastic growth throughout COVID because people moved to technology. So as much as we saw things shifting from the high street, for example, struggling, we saw e-commerce growing rapidly. I think if you look at retail, online retail was 20% of global retail in the UK pre-COVID, is about 35-40% of the retail sector now. So you can see significant changes in industries, and I think that the e-commerce environment has benefited greatly from that.
And before you came on the podcast today, I was reading how, for the large part, local marketplaces have also been going global and making a shift towards global e-commerce. Is that something that you've seen and could possibly expand on?
Yeah, very good question. I think the phenomenon, or what is defined as marketplaces, have been around for quite a few years and have been, gathering pace. That's some of the biggest companies in the world on marketplaces. And in many ways, they enabled small businesses that could have only exist in one small location to suddenly expand and reach consumers globally. As those marketplaces have learned to adapt to the global way of working by introducing more partners, more payment methods, more languages, cross barriers and borders, they enable those businesses to reach out to a much wider range of markets and consumers. And we have definitely seen a shift into that. We see the adoption of the marketplace by small businesses a lot more, by very similar to other parts of the economy where, we have seen shift towards technology. Then also for the marketplaces, we have seen how they've gathered pace quite rapidly over the last couple of years.
And I'm curious, have you seen payment technology providers continuously evolve and attempt to create those seamless commerce experiences that we all increasingly beginning to expect as the normal?
Yeah, I think there are two sides to it. You can see the payment technologies evolving, but you also see the adoption, especially from Generation Z and millennials, who adopt new payment methods much faster. And as there's less loyalty to brands, but more loyalty to comfort. If consumers don't find the easiest way to pay for something or a method they're used to, they're likely to just move on to a different website or company that would allow them to do that. So it's the two sides to it. The one where there's the expectation to everything to happen a lot faster, and the second is the expectation for everything to be available for you as a consumer. Now, it's very interesting to see what's happening now in Europe, because as consumers with the adoption of the wallets like Apple Pay and Google Pay started to get used to, you get on your website and with a press of a finger, you finish a transaction. We're seeing now Europe introducing more complicated, strong customer authentication that actually require you suddenly to get a text message or so slowing down the process of transacting, of purchasing the goods. And we can see how payment technologies now have to adapt to find ways to smooth the process for those companies to avert having any obstacles in the process of making those transactions.
And I'm curious again, are you seeing a rise in things like esports and sports betting industries? Because there seems to be a bit of an increase and especially an interest around those areas. But is that something that you're seeing too? Yeah,
so very good question. The sports betting industry has been around for many years and thrived, and I've been privy to work with gambling companies for almost 2 decades now. Esports is a newer phenomenon, and what happened last year with COVID, if you remember, a lot of sporting events were cancelled. So for regular punters who would like to place a bet on a game on a Saturday night or horsing or horse racing, suddenly there was nothing to do. And so you saw that huge increase in growth of esports activities in in this side of the pond. So for the North America, that's been the case before because sports betting was not regulated as in Europe, and therefore there were no ways for people to bet online when it came to sports betting. So esports was a thriving industry and fantasy sport in North America. We've seen a lot of that here last year because we didn't have sporting activity. And then it seems to have plateaued a bit. So it's very trendy, it's very interesting, but the growth of it has slowed down. And it's always interesting to understand why and to see how that would then impact, for example, the payment processing. As the growth slows down a bit, the emphasis moves into the ease of getting customers in, the ease of making those bets, if you want, on the esports events, etc. But we have definitely seen the growth in that.
And one of the things that put you guys on my radar, and one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today, was after seeing that you released the Redefining Travel Payments in the Post-COVID-19 Era report. And for anyone tuning in that have not heard about that report, could you possibly expand on it and give a few insights that you uncovered in that report?
Yeah, I'm going to try not to tell too much, so people have a reason to go and read it still.
Yeah.
But we worked with Edgar Dunn on creating this report with Visa, us, and Edgar Dunn. And it was very much looking into the travel industry and what are the areas that, as those airlines, travel agencies, OTAs are looking to the recovery from COVID, that they can kind of put the emphasis on. And really what we're trying to say is that, the world, as we discussed before, is becoming a lot more technology focused and savvy. And in many ways, for a travel company or an airline, they need to really start focusing on a contactless type journey for their consumers and as little as obstacles, if you want, as possible in making those transactions, those purchases. Really looking into new payment methods, what payment methods people want to use, and how quickly you can adopt them and add them to your breadth of portfolio of payments that you offer. Looking into the data you get from transactions and work on the analytical side of it and work on optimizing the flow, both in terms of how easy it is for consumers to make a transaction, but also how can you make sure that when a customer is in, if something is not working properly, if a transaction's declined for whatever reason, you have the ability to immediately go in and recover it. And we're talking about all the different ways that they can do it, the different technologies, if you want, they can use in the process, the importance of finding the right partner to work with, and the importance of technology and the fast-paced changes in technology that the travel sector probably can look into as part of, if you're on their technology roadmap for recovery.
And were there any trends that you've particularly noticed, and did anything surprise you at all?
If anything surprised in terms of the report, or in
the report, or in general, that you've encountered over the last 12 months?
In terms of the report, I think as someone who worked very closely with the travel sector for many years now, I think the emphasis is new technologies and the need to do the adoption. And I think it wasn't really surprising, you kind of expect it, but the emphasis for some of the more traditional old-fashioned type players in this industry, the importance to kind of get up to speed with that, to be able to stay relevant, is really, really important. In terms of overall over the last 12 months, if anything surprised me, I think, COVID surprised all of us. I think that was really not predicted. I think I think the adoption of fintech companies as to work in this new environment has really surprised me. The ease at which we moved to it, because you could have forecasted that things will go digital very quickly. I think the industry adjusted to those changes very fast and moved to a way of supporting all the different businesses and the volumes coming through in a really impressive way. It was quite seamless. You've not seen any technology-related challenges on payments, on payment infrastructure across the board.
So a question I've got to ask is, what's next for Nuvei? Is there anything you can share about the road ahead, or any recent big announcements?
Yeah, I think we have many fantastic plans. I think we've just announced our laser focus on US as a gambling market for us. We're working on, we built our stack for the US market. We are eager to go live, and there'll be many announcements coming from that area in the coming weeks and months. So we're very excited about that. We're working on our global roadmap from commercial point of view. So we're looking into expanding globally and more products and more, alternative payment methods our customers can use in helping them to acquire more customers. So there'll be plenty of that in the months to come as well.
Fantastic. And for anybody that would like to download a copy of the report that we were talking about there, or find you guys online, or even contact a member of your team, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we're everywhere in so much of social media. You can find us from LinkedIn to our website, nuvei.com. You can email us as well. So, yeah, we're readily available for all the different channels.
Fantastic. Well, I think over the last 12 months, so much has changed, and it's all been reported and documented so many times. But I think this is one of the few occasions that I've, as someone that records this podcast every day, has learned a little bit about how payment technology providers are creating that seamless commerce experience that we increasingly expect as the norm. And there's so many other big takeouts from that report that I urge people to download. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you for having me.
So I'll post a link to that report over on my blog post that will accompany this episode over at techblogwriter.co.uk/Nuvei. And if you forget that link, just go to my website and go to podcasts and you'll find it there. And I do urge you to check out that report. There's so many invaluable insights in there. And a big thank you to Motie for coming on and sharing them with me today, including how local marketplaces are going global and how markets are shifting towards global e-commerce, and of course how COVID-19 has accelerated that shift to e-commerce. But have a look at the report and let me know what your thoughts are on that report, on anything we discussed today. But if you've got any questions that you'd like to put to me, or you'd like to come on the podcast, again, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, and we'll keep this conversation going and maybe learn a thing or two from each other. So a big thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.